Good morning, Terraria players, and welcome to Stram's Classes, a newer mod to the scene. It adds all new classes to the game, loosely based on Dungeons & Dragons. Currently, the only one in the mod is the Rogue class, but there's more to come with Paladin class actively in the works. I will note that this mod was made by the creator of the Anarchist mod, which I have covered several times on my main channel. That mod got remade entirely for 1.4, so some weapons from the old Dark Artist class made its way into this mod. I am Bedrock Burger, your local bonus action sneak guy. With this run, I beat Terraria as a rogue, not Calamity's rogue. Mods included in this run will be listed in the description below. There's not many, don't worry. Make sure to do what the algorithm likes. If you like the video and want to see more, let me know and leave some suggestions below. I do read all comments. Now let's get into the run. To start off, I named my character Stram Sam and created a large expert mode world. I would do it in Master, but I'm bad at this game, so expert it is. Upon spawning in, I did the usual beginner stuff, making shoebox houses. They're pretty comfy, okay? I will upgrade the shoeboxes eventually, and by eventually, I mean never. I explored to the left, finding the Crimson not even 200 blocks away from spawn. Lovely. Since I didn't have a death wish, I turned my ass around, went to the right, finding a cave and going right into it. I collected as many ores as I could, which wasn't much, and dodged and weave around slimes. Unfortunately, my dodging and weaving was cut short by a boulder. Curse you, red, and your boulders. Upon returning to the surface, I crafted the first rogue weapon, the Copper Dagger. Now allow me to explain how rogue works while cave exploring happens in the background. Rogue is a different take on the throwing class. Each weapon is thrown, and they have two damage values. They have a base damage and a crit damage. The crit damage applies when you score a crit on a hit. If a weapon has 15 base damage and 60 crit damage, the crits would deal the crit damage instead of the normal crit multiplier like other class weapons. Speccing out for crits is a massive help to increase damage output. This class also has a stealth mechanic, but to be honest, I never really played around with it. The stealth in this mod is similar to vanilla, like Shroomite armor. Moving slowly or not at all increases damage output. You need certain accessories to be able to go into stealth though. With the class explained fully, let's resume the run. After exploring for a while, the second rogue weapon I crafted was the throwable torch. It was a torch that you could throw, ignited enemies. With a much better weapon, I returned to the caves, finding a band of life regeneration. I didn't find much else, so I started working on a house in a snow biome since the mod creator suggested it when I asked my Discord where I should build a house. I laid out the base for it, then returned to the mines, working my way to setting up magic storage. I wouldn't place them yet, as I wanted the house to be complete. I dove into the ice biome underground, finding a new rogue weapon, the ice spear. It exploded on contact. Very large upgrade over the throwable torch. I then found flurry boots. All I needed was a double jump and I felt ready to take on bosses. While exploring more underground, the rogue NPC arrived. He required 25 gold in your inventory at any point to spawn. He sold a variety of rogue items, including an armor set, the rogue armor set. Wow. Its set bonus gave us small dash and reduced enemy aggro, which is a very common theme among rogue armors, similar to how most Dark Artist sets back in old Anarchist had self-revives. The traveling merchant then arrived and sold a rogue weapon, the exotic kunai. A rogue weapon that threw a bunch of smaller knives. Deceptively strong. It had lower damage than other rogue weapons around this stage, but the multiple knives it threw made up for it. It was then time to take to the skies and search for sky islands. I found one with a lucky horseshoe, and the others have nothing of note. When I returned, I decided to actually finish the house. I'll let a montage roll while I explain my building mindset. As the main house is in the snow biome, I wanted to of course use boreal wood. My goal with the house was a big, all-in-one house, as Quality of Life Compendium removes the happiness system. I aimed to make the house look as if it was a ski lodge buried in the snow, repeating a build from a video that I never released on the SGA mod. Making small tunnels for the entrances, making support pillars underneath some parts, making a tunnel to my elevator, and burying the whole thing entirely except the ways in and out. At the end of the build, I was very satisfied with how it turned out. And hey, where should I build in the next mod I play? Give me your thoughts in the comments below. Engagement bait. I've spent enough time waffling about nonsense in house building, so let's actually get to some bosses. I finished preparation by getting a Thief's Pocketbook Underground, which increases rogue crit chance by 5%, and I also got a Cloud in a Bottle. There was one final thing I wanted before bosses, and that was new armor, the Arid armor, made from underground desert stuff and silk. Most rogue armors use silk to craft, just to know. After a long while, I was able to craft it. This armor was actually very good, giving a free sandstorm in a bottle effect as its set bonus. And now it's time for the early game boss rush. I honestly didn't do much upgrading in between the bosses, so I'll only mention the upgrades as I do them. I'll roll the footage in full, but if you'd like me to speed up the fights in future videos, let me know. Let's begin with the King Slime. When the King Slime went down, it dropped the gel-tipped shuriken from its treasure bag. A very good weapon, it latched onto enemies and exploded after a bit, dealing extra damage. Shurikens share that common theme. It's then time for the next boss, the Eye of Cthulhu. I did not upgrade in between the next two bosses, so I'll just roll the footage as one. With the Eye and the Brain of Cthulhu down, I unlocked the ability to purchase an extraordinarily powerful accessory from the rogue, the arm strap. It doubled any knife thrown, save for a handful. Yes, doubled it. So my damage output went from pretty good to extremely high from there. Doesn't duplicate shurikens or javelins. To get more upgrades, I sought the Shimmer, and shimmered a Band of Star Power into the Band of Light Obscurement, and the Panic Necklace into the Amulet of Hell. The Band of Light Obscurement was the first stealth accessory, boosting rogue crit chance by 27% when not moving at all. The Amulet of Health gave extra movement speed and acceleration, and even more when damaged. Also gave rogue crit chance when damaged. A meteor had landed at some point, so I mined it, making meteorite bars and crafting the space shuriken. It stuck on enemies and exploded, and created additional copies of itself that fell from the sky on critical hits. I also crafted the shooting star and the moon magnet accessories. The shooting star created a star occasionally on rogue hits. It dealt low damage though. The moon magnet made it so rogue weapons fell towards the nearest celestial body. During night, they fell up. During the day, they fell down. Why craft these if I don't use them? Well, it's simple. Each class in Stram's Classes mod will have a mega accessory tied to them that requires every accessory of the class to create. This one was the level 20 Rogue, and it was what I was shooting for. I had a lot of work to do for it, and it continued with jungle exploration, where I sought jungle materials and another piece to the mega accessory. Surprisingly, it didn't take a long time to find. I'm usually cursed when it comes to jungle exploration. The Vial of Poison was what I found, which allowed rogue attacks to inflict poison, and crits spread poison to nearby enemies. I then got a Goblin Invasion to happen, and during it I got the Gloves of Thievery, a rogue accessory that increased rogue attack speed by 12%, which was very noticeable. After finding the Goblin, I reforged everything to Lucky for extra crit chance. I then took advantage of the Tinkerer's Workshop to make the bundle of horseshoe balloons for a lot more mobility. Next up was the Queen Bee, as she had a very strong rogue weapon for this stage in the game. So strong that it actually got nerfed after I finished my run. With the Queen Bee dead, I bought a few treasure bags because I'm a total scumbag and acquired the Bee Sting. It was a dagger that made bees on hits. It was doubled by the arm strap, so it was double the power and double the bees. Next up, this class has a nice edge weapon, so I crafted the Vessel Striker and the Dagger of Ingested Poison, the Blade of Grass and Light's Bane variants for Rogue. When the next night came, I decided to use the Bee String to take on Skeletron. Yeah, Skeletron kinda folded like a wet napkin. There's a reason why the bee sting got nerfed. Inside the dungeon, it was pretty typical. Get keys, open chests. I obtained the Bouncer, a throwing axe that bounced, and the Hydro Spear, which left a damaging water trail. They weren't the bee sting, so into magic storage they went. To prepare for the Wall of Flesh, I explored hell, finding the Hades boots in a shadow chest, which gave a dash and a bonus 6% rogue crit chance. I mined a ton of hellstone and got to crafting, making the Flame Tongue, the volcano variant of the Knight's Edge that stuck to enemies that exploded. I also crafted the Gem Sparking Gauntlet, which caused gem explosions on crits. For armor, I made the Lucifer armor out of hellstone and silk. It didn't give a dash, oddly enough, but instead summoned spectral blades that slashed enemies when you crit with rogue weapons. Huge DPS increase with those spectral blades. I also made the New Moon, the Knight's Edge for Rogue. It wasn't a knife, so it didn't double, but instead stopped in the air after a bit and a spun, dealing more damage. Through to the Quality of Life Compendium mod, I crafted a Hellbridger to make an easy arena for Wall of Flesh. I then waited for a while for a Voodoo Demon, and when I got the Dottle Drop, I challenged the Wall of Flesh. With the wall down, hard mode began. I used the Demon Heart and shimmered the emblem that dropped into a rogue emblem. When I returned to the rogue NPC, he sold new items, the Vial of Cyanide and the Stealth Cloak, which were buff versions of the Vial of Poison and the Band of Light Obscurement respectively. As I was now in hard mode, it was time for the usual progression. Breaking altars to get palladium, mithril, and titanium, normal farming, pixies for fairy dust, farming souls of light and night, farmed frost golems, and went mining for the ores. I always go right to tier 3 ores by making the pick, and then moving on to the next one. Honestly, the weirdest part of Terraria progression to me, you just go straight for the tier 3 ore, unless you have orichalcum, in which case you go for orichalcum, because it's just really good. With Mithril, I made the Mithril Dagger, which split when it hit enemies. I could have gone for the Titanium Javelin, but it wasn't affected by the arm strap. To get hard mode armor, I crafted fine silk out of souls of night or light and silk. I made the Cloak of Weak Point Finding, which allowed rogue weapons to penetrate armor equal to 10% of their crit damage. So a weapon with 70 critical damage would penetrate 7 enemy armor. I also crafted the Nightwalker armor, which gave a dash. If you passed through an attack during the dodge, the damage was negated with a 30-second cooldown. You can still dash during the cooldown, which is actually really nice. I also made Fairy Wings, my default starter wings for hard mode. Easy to get and pretty good stats for this tier. Next up, it was time for the mechs. I started with the Destroyer, as the Destroyer is really easy. This fight took 6 minutes though, so I'm putting it at 4 times speed with music by my buddy Snowman in the background. Link in the description below. With the destroyer down, I took its Souls of Might and crafted the Vial of Mercury, which created damaging gas as rogue weapons flew. The gas didn't do much damage, in fact it dealt 1 damage, but damage is damage, and a lot of ticks of 1 damage adds up. With the Hollowed Bars, I crafted Hollowed Armor, as Stram's classes adds a helmet for a rogue. It has the exact same set bonus though. I also crafted the Holy Blade, which made light copies that slash when it hit enemies. Pretty strong, but massively overshone by the next rogue weapon I'd craft after I defeat Skeletron Prime. Speaking of Skeletron Prime, Skeletron Prime. With Skeletron Prime down, I took his Souls of Fright and made the Hatchet. It bounced, and when it dealt damage, it released homing souls. It did an insanely high amount of damage for this tier, so I was very excited to tear the twins apart. Let's see how it did. The twins actually went down very easily with the Hatchet, actually one of the quickest boss fights in this entire run. With their souls, I made the Depth Perception, an upgrade to a weapon I actually didn't make earlier. It launched out, stopped, then tracked onto the nearest enemy if the enemy got within range. I also crafted the Pickaxe Axe, worked on a Terraria arena, got bored, then searched for Chlorophyte. Like Hollowed Armor, it also had a helmet variant that gave 10 armor penetration for Rogue and the same crystal turret from Vanilla. With the new armor, it was time to continue progression with Terraria. I finished the arena, which fortunately had a bulb nearby, and challenged the plant boss. The hatchet is really strong for this tier, which I'm okay with. With playing Terra down, I went into the dungeon again, searching for mostly ectoplasm. I got a ton, then crafted a few things. The Cloak of Heavy Obscurement, an upgrade to the Band of Light Obscurement, and the Stealth Cloak. It inherited their effects, but made them better. Similar with the Branded Arm Strap, which inherited the effects of the Arm Strap, Leather Strap, and Rogue Emblem, but made them all better. They both required ectoplasm to make. For armor, I had two options, the Grinch Armor and the Phantom Armor. The Grinch Armor was made from Flink's Fur, ectoplasm, and fine silk. Phantom Armor from Spectre Bars and fine silk. The Phantom Armor gave a dash, which put you into a spectral form for 30 seconds. You moved faster and had a higher crit chance. 30-second cooldown after it runs out. Grinch Armor gave a dash and stole defense from enemies up to 15 defense. It also buffed winter-themed weapons crit chance by 15%. I went with the Grinch Armor because higher defense, and because I was on the holiday events for progression. I started with the Pumpkin Moon, and failed to get the weapon from it to drop after about 5 Pumpkin Moons, so I moved on to the Solar Eclipse, where I got the Eclipse Magnet, which was a super buffed moon magnet, then returned to the Pumpkin Moon. I did several Pumpkin Moons in a row, all failing to get the weapon from the pumpkins, so I crafted the Dagger of Venom to help fight them. It inflicted venom and had an insanely high speed, doubled with the arm strap. I then moved on to the Frost Moon, getting a weapon to drop from the Ice Queen, the sentient snowflake, which stuck on enemies and exploded. Also released snow as it flew. This weapon has extremely high crit damage compared to weapons around it, almost 500 critical damage, which absolutely carried me through the Pumpkin Moon. After nearly 100 kills of pumpkins, I got the Harvest Sickle to drop. This rogue weapon made tracking projectiles and ignored 20 enemy defense. Very good. To return to mega accessory grinding, I got all the life fruit I needed, then went to the underground desert to hunt for the Poacher's Stinger, which dropped from those big ass scorpions. Took a bit, but I got it. The accessory gave a 5% chance for rogue weapons to double crit, which doubled its crit damage. With it equipped, I went after Golem, as Beetle Husks went into an upgrade for the Poacher's Stinger. Golem time. It's Golem, so he went down really easy. With his Beetle Husks, a Dagger Sheath, which I had missed completely earlier and gave 2 extra crit damage, and the Stinger, I made the Sheath Stinger. It gave 5 defense, and inherited all the effects of the previous equipment and buffed them, changing the 5% chance to double crit to a 5% chance to triple crit, dealing 3 times crit damage. It also gave 10 extra crit damage. Speaking of missed stuff, I returned to the dungeon to get the Bottle of Mustard, an upgrade to the Vial of Mercury that released mustard gas as rogue weapons flew. It was needed in the level 20 rogue, so I had to get it. We now resume the usual boss rush. Duke Fishron and the Lunatic Cultist. Let's get to endgame. When the Duke went down, his treasure bag was unfortunately bugged at the time and his weapon didn't drop at all. T-mod issue, not a mod issue. They changed how treasure bags work while this mod was in development. Now, let's get to the cultist. With the cultists down, the pillars started. Of course, I lowered the enemy count using Quality of Life Compendium because this event is horrible. Before taking on any of them, I used the Ancient Manipulator to combine more accessories together to make the Master Thief's gear. It inherited the effects of the Gloves of Thievery, the Hades Boots, and the Cloak of Weak Point Finding, but making them all better, of course. I had all these accessories earlier, but they specifically require an Ancient Manipulator to craft. I then took down a couple of the pillars and made some weapons, the Aether Knives and the Phantom Axe. The Aether Knife split into 3 homing blades as it threw, doubled because it was a dagger. The Phantom Axe was an improved hatchet, but nowhere near as good as the Aether Knives. I then crafted the Celestial Orbit, which inherited the effects of the Shooting Star, Gem Sparking Gauntlet, and the Eclipse Magnet, also improved them too. And with these upgrades, it was time for the Moon Lord, the end of the game. Let's finish this. And with that, the Moon Lord has been defeated. Unfortunately, his treasure bag drop was also bugged at the time and didn't drop, but that has been fixed by the time the next update for Stram's classes rolls around. With the Luminite, I crafted the Eclipse Armor, the final armor for Rogue. It increased life regeneration, gave an omnidirectional dash, which means up and down as well, so you could basically fly with this thing, and stealth after a dash that allow you to gain increased damage resistance and damage output for 30 seconds, with no cooldown after it ends. After making the armor, I crafted the final accessory of the mod, the level 20 Rogue. It inherited the effects of every single rogue accessory in the mod, a wall of text that rivals the old Void Shield from Anarchist mod before its overhaul. We here at Burger Core love mega accessories. To try it out, I returned to the source of much pain in this run, obliterating the Pumpkin Moon. With the Aether Knives, Eclipse Armor, and the level 20 Rogue, it was a total joke. Lagged my game too. Pretty funny. While it plays out, I'll actually do a short review of how the Rogue played. In short, or actually pretty long, it was very fun and actually made me nostalgic from dark artists from the old Anarchist. Very big fan of this mega accessory grind as it made every acquisition of accessories count. The only issue I had, and it's a very small issue, was actually the weird power fluctuations. Pre-Mex and pre-holiday events were the only noticeable times where power felt weak, and I struggled to clear them. I will Also note that I didn't actually go for the mimic weapons. Those would have probably helped against the mechs. But actually clearing the first mech was a bit of a struggle. I mean, 6-minute destroyer fight. Once I got a certain weapon, the hatchet from Skeletron Prime and the sentient snowflake from the Frost Moon, the power just spiked way high and I was able to clear those events, which I guess is intentional. Those were the only two noticeable moments where the power just seemed extraordinarily low, but otherwise the class felt extremely balanced in comparison to vanilla weapons and armor, which is the intention of the mod. Vanilla compatible. It's not Calamity, where everything from that mod beats vanilla items 100% of the time in terms of raw power. Rogue is balanced for vanilla, and it fits right into it. In multiplayer, I'm sure that this class would not overpower the vanilla classes and items. Very pleased with how evenly distributed armor and weapons were throughout the mod. At every tier, there was something to upgrade or go for, and it followed vanilla closely. If you could make an armor set for a class from vanilla, you could most likely make an armor set for Rogue. As for the crit gimmick, I'm a fan. It's not a boring throwing class that just does throw and nothing else like Thorium's thrower class, but spins it up and changes how you play. Normally you just go for warding or menacing on your accessories and that's it, but with Rogue you could do lucky for a prefix, an actual choice, wow. I also swapped accessories a lot throughout the mod depending on the weapon. A good indication of accessory variation, as there weren't accessories that were necessary for the class to function, like the mana flower for mage or knockback resist for melee. I will say though, arm strap is incredible and was relevant for the entire run. With that, let's do a number rating for this class. For fun factor, very easy 10 out of 10, the most fun throwing type class I've played and modded. For weapon and accessory diversity, also easy 10 out of 10, the only time diversity is good. There's a ton of stuff in just Rogue alone to keep you going. Very excited for Paladin to come, though I'll wait a bit to do a video on it. For difficulty, the lower number the better, I'd rate 2 out of 10. Had some trouble pre-mech and pre-holiday event, but otherwise pretty smooth experience. Never got stuck on a boss, never hit a wall in progression. Very good balancing for expert mode. Rogue, for Stram's classes, gets a Bedrock Burger 9.9 out of 10. Very, very, very highly recommended for a vanilla light mod. I'd absolutely play it again, and do a run of all future classes. But what comes next? In the next all-in-one Terraria video, I cover a mod that I've never heard of, nor seen coverage of at all. Stay tuned for that one, I'm aiming to have that video ready early April. If you like this video, a rating would be appreciated. Thank you all for coming and watching. Bedrock Burger, out.